Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'd like to call the Fire Station Building Committee meeting to order for Wednesday, April 10th at 6:30 p.m. here at the Lakeville Police Station. LakeCAM is filming for us and recording the meeting. Is there anybody else here recording? See, I did it at the beginning of the meeting this time. So, no, I guess not. So, welcome, everybody. Everybody have a good couple weeks. It's nice to see everybody back to the table. I'm gonna actually turn this over to you because I know this is at the point where.
Right on the spot, huh?
Bam, you know what? You're on a roll coming from meeting to meeting, so your headspace is there, so.
All right, well, great to see everybody again. I didn't see everybody at the last meeting, but I am back 100% in the office, so you'll be seeing me much more of me. So, first of all, I think what we wanted to touch on was, I know the select board had voted on the parcel of land.
Correct.
And so the next thing that we did there was, we've been working with Kyle's team and Secotio to start doing some due diligence on that site. And Jim from PARS is here as well tonight, and we wanted to talk about that, what's gone on kind of in the past really 24 hours or 48 hours on that site. But when the site was voted on, there's a perennial, or there's a stream that is across the street from the site on the other side of Bedford Street, and then it actually crosses Bedford Street. That at the time of doing the selection of the site, it was thought that stream, or was said that stream was an intermittent stream. And so an intermittent stream has a 100-foot setback. As PAR started to dig into that, they realized that the USGS mapping, it actually calls it out as a perennial stream, which would mean that it has a 200-foot setback. So when we saw that, first of all, it shocked us. We started to discuss, what that really means with PAR. We set up a conference call with them yesterday. And they were planning to come out today actually and do some flagging of the wetlands. But in talking about that and doing some discussions with Nate as well, we discussed in-house for PAR to come out and actually look at the stream themselves and do some investigation around the stream prior to doing any mapping of it. Reason being, in talking with Nate, I think there's feeling that it really is an intermittent stream, not perennial, and that the USGS maps could in fact be wrong. That does happen. So the town does have some history of the streams. There are some other sites that have been permitted that actually show it as an intermittent stream, not perennial. So there is history on the fact that it is intermittent. So I would say it's not time to sound the alarms all at once right now. We're still kind of understanding what that could mean. And if there is any options, also if it is perennial, to push the site back and have a drive in that 200-foot setback. So that's all just coming up light now, and so I wanted to kind of hit that off the top now to just make sure it's out in the open and we're discussing it. And I'll kind of hand that over to Jim and Kyle if there's any updates from today. Again, PAR was out today to look and view the stream, and I believe they walked around with Nate and did some observations. So I'll hand it over to you, Jim.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, so as Taylor said, when we have our initial review of GIS, we were going to need a 100-foot setback from the intermittent stream, and now we're seeing a 200-foot wetland riverfront buffer, which has different rules, which are a little more strict. So we're a little concerned right now. So Nate and one of our wetland scientists, Seaver Anderson, went out today just to walk the stream in areas where it's accessible. We can't go on private property. So Nate had permission. There was one house that was for sale across the street, and so he was able to go on that property, and they looked at the stream. And obviously it had water in it. It's been raining for months now, so it definitely was full of water. And they did also talk to a resident somewhere along the stream. I can't remember exactly where they were, but he said he's never seen the stream dry. So that doesn't bode well for it being intermittent. But that's not the final say. And then Nate was going to look into some permits for. There's been some permits for septic systems in the area, and then also I think Mass DOT might be pulling some permits for work on the culvert. So he was going to try to research those and see what they're calling the stream in those permit submittals. So we're still doing a little more research, but what we did do today, this afternoon, we just said, okay, say it is a perennial stream and we have to do the 200-foot setback and also meet the standards for that 200-foot buffer, which is we've got to, really eliminate as much as possible any work within that buffer. It's a little more stringent than a regular wetland buffer. So we did put together a plan that shows, the station on that site. We wanted to maintain access to Bedford Street, direct access, because we felt that was important. So we did come up with a sketch, and I can pass these around. Not sure if I've got enough for everyone, but
We can share one here.
I got about 10 of them, so. And it just shows what happens if we do try to meet those 200-foot riverfront buffer setbacks.
And this was they just kind of pushed the site back. So,
Yeah.
take it as, it's just a kind of placement, but, so there could be more to kind of rearrange this and reducing impact, but.
Thank you.
The 100 feet is pretty substantial to the way the site was laid out before. We were
Yeah.
sitting probably at 104 feet away. We were right at the edge of the buffer at the nearest point.
Yep.
So for lack of a better term, it takes the building and pushes it back the width of the building a little bit more than that.
Yeah, we pushed the
On the
building
site.
back. So right now, we're about 250 feet off the road, but we do have access directly to Bedford Street. So if you look on the drawing, across the street from the site, there's a line that's the edge of the stream from GIS information. We will have to go out and do an actual delineation and get the actual location. And then the next line from that, going to the left, is the 100-foot buffer, and then the 200-foot buffer. So we're showing like a driveway crossing that 200-foot buffer, about a 40-foot wide driveway. That could be adjusted either way, but it's, we're trying to minimize the impacts in that 200-foot buffer. We have to show the Conservation Commission that we're minimizing impacts when we go for the permit, but we can decide what we feel is the minimum we can go.
So can we put a drive in the 200-foot buffer?
Yeah, we're allowed to impact up to 10% of the buffer on the property. So, we're allowed to go up to 10%. Doesn't mean we're entitled to that.
Yeah.
We do have to show that we've done everything to avoid that. But if it was over 10% of the area, then it would definitely be a no. But we have to show we're limiting the impacts as much as
If
possible.
I can just jump in real quick, it's important to mention here, this plan is belt and suspenders. So we just wanted to know that it could still go on the property and meet the requirements. So the USGS map shows interconnection between Loon Pond and the wetland area. We walked that, it clearly doesn't exist. So you have contributing waters to this stream, and the stream is essentially a drainage ditch. It was clearly man-made drainage ditch. So right now that stream is holding between 12 and 16 inches of water in the amount of rainfall that we've had. So lucky for us, I think, that crosses two state roads, Bedford Street and Main Street. Both of them have culverts. Both of them had design for flows through those culverts. They appear to be 12 to 16 inch culverts. So we're not dealing with something with significant flow. Even right now, it's a trickle, right? So I just want to make sure that we're clear. So this we haven't ruled anything out here.
Yep.
This is belt and suspenders. It's, the worst case scenario, we might have to do something like this. But I'm not a wetland scientist, but based on what I see, I just don't see how it's a perennial stream. There's just not enough contributing area for that to flow year round. And I spoke to the gentleman on Old Main Street myself, and he did say it pooled, but the elevation change over there, plus the additional surface area that was contributing, there's significant wetlands between Bedford Street and Old Main Street. So those are all contributing to the flow. So if downstream from where our site is intermittent, then we certainly won't be perennial here. But I think we might see a situation where it's intermittent from our wetland to across the street, and then it might change to perennial. but we're gonna have to determine that. The important piece to note on that as well is our responsibility to determine that. So USGS is kind of like the starting point, and they're gonna be conservative because it's important that we protect these resource areas. And so we would rather see it defined as a perennial, and then we rule that out and say, no, it's intermittent, and here's the proof of that. Unfortunately, it would either require MassDOT, calculations, a septic system that went in and was permitted through conservation to determine that with, pictures and possibly video of being dry up and down the stream or the ditch. So the onus is gonna be on us to do that. And that's just wanted to make sure that we were clear about how that worked.
Yeah, the USGS maps can be changed.
Yeah.
But it is on, the owner or the town to provide proof, historical proof that, it is an intermittent stream, not perennial. It's not always flowing.
That puts pressure on your office and.
Not me. Not a little bit. So I will reach out to District 5, I'll reach out to MassDOT, see what they have, calculations on the culvert, replacements over the years. And then, I have pulled, records from Board of Health on septic systems, and I'll pull records from conservation and see what they've permitted in the area.
Yeah, and
It's
some
a
of the
good
plans
starting
that you
point.
sent over to call it out as intermittent.
Yeah.
So, it's, I don't wanna call it a mistake that was made, because I think there is alternate information that's kind of available. And that's what, PAR went off of when they first looked at it, but because it wasn't part of the conversation when everybody voted on the sites, I wanted to make sure that we talked about it now and it was brought up.
Right.
And, it wasn't known to us, really until, Monday when we started to get into all this. And the other, I should say, the parallel track that's running is PAR is also looking into what it does take to change the USGS mapping, getting some more information on that, as far as, what that will take and any other, implications of having the drive in the 200-foot buffer, so.
And it's important too, that anytime that we see conflicting information, we go with whatever's more stringent, and then we rule that out in order to progress in a manner that it's not gonna come back and haunt us. So, in the spirit of the Wetland Protection Act, we wanna make sure that this is intermittent, and we'll do whatever we can to show that. And then go with the original plan, I think is the intent, but this is a good fallback.
Yeah, that's the intent of this plan, is just to show kind of the worst case, what, if we can't prove that this is intermittent.
So who ultimately makes the decision? What agency decides that? Like,
Conservation.
it's the
Commission.
conservation, okay.
Appealable through DEP from either
Yeah.
Okay.
positive or negative determination.
Okay.
Is, when you say the burden is on the owner, us, is that with the support of our contracted engineers, the
Yes.
people that
Yes.
started the beginning? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, our next step would be to get out there and look closely at these wetlands and the stream. For that, we would need permission to get on the private property, so that's another issue, but we would go out there and confirm what we feel it is, if it's intermittent, and try to prove that case.
Do you want to start flagging now at this point that you've taken a look, or are you talking about a separate trip that's not flagging wetlands?
No, we should, I think next step would be to flag, actually get out there and flag the wetlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the Ted Williams camp property, it needs to be done regardless.
Yeah.
So I think that it makes sense to go out and flag what's on this side and go from there.
Yep, can we get permission to go on the private property, or? It'd be nice to do it in one day if we could.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I suppose I can try to reach out,
Okay.
to them and see if we can get on that property.
We can do it, we can ask them, but it's, it can become awkward, they'll ask us why, and, we
I
would just say
guess-
for a town project, but.
I guess it kind of go back to what I said earlier, where, if this is intermittent, it really almost doesn't matter what that is. And,
Yep.
and to some extent, I don't want to.
Set a precedent.
Get on another person's property and determine something that is intermittent, if
Yeah.
it's maybe, goes to, perennial once you get over there and get more contributing waters.
Yep.
But that's, I guess, my recommendation would be start here. And then see where we're at, as I compile other data from, MassDOT and, other local resources, and then we can make a determination.
And if it was perennial on the, on your property to the north, that really doesn't impact as much, that 200 feet there.
Right.
You know, it's that right across the street that's really impacting us with the.
Oh, that's right, so across Bedford Street.
Yeah,
How does that impact, so natural heritage doesn't like you getting into the riverfront area, right? They look at it
Yeah.
as a wildlife corridor.
yeah,
Well, if you look at where the stream goes parallel with Bedford Street, how is
Yeah.
Bedford, how is
Bedford
Bedford
Street's-
Street a
Bedford Street's
wildlife
in the
corridor?
buffer.
It's in the middle
So
of
they're
it.
saying, yes, so, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm only playing devil's advocate there because I think a lot of times, well, we all know, rules and regulations can't be written for everything.
yeah,
So you would hope that there would be a common sense component, that even if it was determined to be perennial, we would understand it's simply not a wildlife corridor down
Yeah.
Bedford Street.
yeah, and that certainly
Yeah,
helps.
right.
Having Bedford Street there is helpful, you know, it's,
Yeah,
But-
but it's a discussion that needs
Yeah.
to be had.
Is it worth, having a discussion with Concom, kind of, you know,
Yeah.
off the record to see what they feel, you know?
Yeah, I can, well, so my next step is to ask Conservation to see if they have any filings on record, whether it be, I'm assuming there would be notices of intent for the culverts.
Yeah.
So if they have a file of a notice of intent and there's a determination there with adequate, photographic evidence that it was intermittent and Conservation did in fact agree with that assessment, then I think we're in really good shape.
Yeah.
Especially because they're state roads. So, in an ideal scenario, the culvert on Main Street downstream of us, completely past the subject parallel, portion of, the stream, if that was determined intermittent, it's not gonna be perennial upstream of that.
Yeah.
So if the Main Street culvert was, designed based on a certain flow calculation, seasonal flow perhaps, best case scenario, that would solve this in just one notice of intent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent.
I mean,
If it,
I live in a life of rainbows and
Yeah, I
unicorns,
guess
so I
you
can't
do.
guarantee that. But I will tell you that, you look around town, every place that's never floods is flooded.
yeah,
And there's 12 to 16 inches of water in this ditch.
yeah. My backyard has water and it's never had water in it, so everybody's kind of dealing with that.
okay.
I have a question. So worst case scenario is that this is a perennial stream, which by that definition, my driveway is right now, but that's. Does this plan that you've drawn out cover us for this? Or are we looking at a new location?
This is likely permittable.
Yeah,
This
So
is permittable
it still
likely.
needs approval through conservation, but it appears to be a permittable plan.
yeah.
So we're not going back to the drawing board, we're good here. Is there a huge cost adjustment here? Making this move, I mean,
I think the way it's shown right now, there's probably more asphalt.
Yeah, a little more asphalt,
But-
but not
That's
major.
This is also without looking at the site with that 200-foot setback to see what we could do to limit that.
this whole stream kind of threw me off, but I mean, I see, we see all over the place, they're building new roads and new bridges and new everything all over the place. They just build bridges over these things, so I mean, if we had a stream here, can't we just build the driveway over that with?
So Larry, we're not impacting the stream.
Okay.
So that's the stream is actually running.
On the other side
On
of
the
that.
other side, it's
Yeah.
just, it's the 200 feet, so it's not a
Exactly.
problem. Okay.
Exactly. So even, there's been some discussion about a walking trail that's out there. It's a beautiful walking trail. That goes right along the wetland. But the original site, I think, was 100 feet away from that. So that's gonna remain there. And so we're not impacting the stream whatsoever. It's
Even
this-
if we push it back 200 feet, we're not affecting it, because I saw a lot of that on Facebook.
No, the only
People
difference
very
with.
upset about a walking path.
The only difference at all that we're working with right now is whether or not there's a 100-foot regulated areas, not necessarily a buffer. It's just jurisdictional area. So intermittent stream is 100 feet, wetland is 100 feet, perennial stream is 200. It's a riverfront area.
Okay.
So it's just the regulated or resource area of jurisdictional with the Wetland Protection Act.
And that,
So as worst case scenario, we think we can still move forward with this plan.
Yeah.
That's all I
there
think.
was some conversations yesterday too that, it doesn't mean you can't necessarily get something permitted in that either, but it becomes challenging. And then, so if it is identified as perennial, then we have to really look at what it would take to try to permit
Okay.
inside that space. It may not be worth the effort, it may be worth the
If we wanted to
effort,
move the
but-
building into that space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or if it shifted and we put more pavement in
Yeah.
that space, or do something, so, this is the kind of stay away from it plan as much as possible.
Okay.
But I think that there are in-between plans.
Yeah, if we had to go with this, we would fine tune it and pull the station closer to the road. I mean, we would try to.
But this is great though. This shows us there is a plan B, a fallback position. So, well, we're doing the other due diligence.
So we're basically discussing awareness. We're aware of a potential problem, but we're not at a point where we have to make a determination. And if we do make a determination, we have to do basically a cost benefit analysis of that site. Does it change? I guess I'll rewind a little bit. I see us having a fixed budget or a ceiling, whatever it is, I'm not sure. But when I see expenses being dedicated to the preparation of a site and changing a site, like there's gonna be a decision, like I see that being taken away from the mission operability of the building. And so that's what I'm worried about right now, more than the setback. And, it's like, I don't wanna see the building be less than because of the site quality.
I personally don't see anything with this plan revision that's gonna go anywhere at all as far, I mean, you got a little bit more pavement perhaps. But I think if we shrug that closer to Bedford Street, you'd limit that. I don't think you'd see very much from a cost perspective.
Thank you for making me feel better.
Yeah.
No, honestly, Mike,
No, I appreciate it.
It's important probably for everybody to hear. We quickly put the brakes on, so let's cross this off before we start doing geotech and all these other things. Because if we're gonna move the building 50 feet, 75 feet, it might change everything. We don't wanna waste any of that. This is just a simple checkbox. So I think that regardless, if it's perennial, it's perennial. We'll figure it out. We'll do something like this, or, try to, negotiate that, make a play that Bedford Street's not it's a wild corridor with people nowadays. But,
To that.
it's not stopping the project.
Okay.
And I don't think there's a huge cost, to any of this. I think it's just we're being, abundantly cautious. We're just checking a box before we move to the next step.
Thank you.
It's all part of the discovery,
Yep,
you
exactly.
know, for the site.
Everything stayed right on schedule. Everything is on the last schedule that Alex presented at last meeting. Like Nate said, we just threw the brakes on a little bit for this. They'll go out there next week, get the flagging done. So, we might have lost a couple days, can easily be made up. So no major changes to the schedule with this new business.
Right.
I don't know if you want to pass.
Yeah, do you want me to
If you want to
pass
pass
this
it out, but you go through it. There's really no changes though.
Also, it hasn't been updated. Okay, thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excuse me, I have like a map, site plan, you want?
Art in the memory, Mike.
We can pass.
What's that?
Mine's burnt. Thank you for
We've
waiting.
been sitting in meetings, I just wanted to get up. Thank you.
I'm gonna pass something out too because it plays into our schedule.
We've been sitting too long, we had to get up.
Whatever you hand out, I wanna make sure Christina gets it from our. Yeah.
Just quickly run through
Yeah,
the schedule.
do you have an extra copy
What?
of what you just passed out?
Oh, yeah.
Just wanna make sure we get it for the
Oh,
administrative
that, okay.
Yeah.
record, yeah.
So I know this was presented at last meeting, but I'll just quickly run through, what we've done and where we're going. So we talked about already designer on board, site selection. So, as we just talked about, we're gonna do some additional preferred site investigations, site survey, wetlands delineation, all kind of falls into line to what's being done right now, with the stream investigation. We'll also do geotech and utility availability assessment. We have those dates pending, as doing it this spring, but, we're gonna work with Secosha and PAR to nail down exactly when we're gonna do these items. And once we have that, we'll update the schedule. Tonight, I think we're gonna present, the estimate for design development and, for the warrant for the Springtown meeting, which is on June 10th. We are hoping to get schematic design estimate, between May 24th and June 7th. We usually do about 2 weeks for estimating. And then following that, we'll do a town review of the schematic design and estimate, go over it with you all and, see if we're accurate and where we're at, see if there's anything we need to think about as we're going forward. From there, we'll go into design development, which will be about 2 months. We'll do estimate, where am I? I'm losing myself. We'll do design development estimate at the beginning of September. From there, beginning of September until that fall town meeting, we'll do a public relations window. We'll really put ourselves forward, do marketing, forums, whatever we need to do to help sell this for fall town meeting, with our number there. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay.
Quick snapshot.
Yeah.
So what I passed out too, I know there was questions about what that cost would be to get us through design development. So I have 2 different budgets with me. One of them I can pass out after, but I did a full development budget for this project so everybody can kind of see where it falls with all of our costs. And these are, I use square footage costs right now for the construction, and then our soft costs are basically from project history, things that we've seen, through past projects. But what I just passed out would be, I've zeroed out everything else, and really just gave you the design development costs for this project. So working with Kyle's team and Mark, we put together what those costs would be. So at this point, if you look at anything in blue, these are the funds that we've already spent. You haven't spent all of them, but these are the first contracts that you have for Secotio and for Pomeroy, and then a small one for your LSP, who's LEC. So those total costs right now are a little over $200,000. And to bring us through full DD, you'd be looking, the basis or the major portion of that is line 7. Your architect and engineering to get you through a DD portion package is $537,000. And then from us, there'd be another $47,000 for that DD time period. We're carrying $15,000 for a third-party cost estimate. That's an allowance in the case that you want to do a comparison estimate. We do have some additional land survey and topo monies that we may or may not use. And same with geotechnical engineering. Mark thought it would be good to carry this in case we have to do any additional test pits or any borings out there. We just wanted to make sure we have money set aside and not have to go back and ask more for any site survey type information. So that additional monies that would be needed to bring you through DD would be an additional $654,815.
What's topo?
Topographical, so
Okay.
survey, elevations, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
So the spring article would be for design development costs and related expenses, $655, rounded up.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm not sure what you had appropriated, what might be left from that first
Yeah,
appropriation,
this
but.
appropriated 220, we've
220.
only paid 2 invoices, so,
Yeah, so in the total of what you've spent is a little over 200, so you have an extra 20 in there.
Yeah.
Floating, it sounds like.
all right, so 655.
Yeah, but yeah, 655, you'd
Alright.
be fine.
Don't know the funding source yet, but I will meet with the town accountant tomorrow.
Okay, and if you have any additional questions,
Yeah.
please feel free to contact me.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to help.
okay. No, this is good. I was kind of in that ballpark myself, so. If you can, just take a moment, there were some questions that, some of the residents had asked about, explaining schematic design, and I know Rick was here at one of the previous meetings, and he did talk about it, because the money that we had originally allocated was for phase 1, to schematic design, but, if you can just talk a little bit, just for the public that's here, listening and watching and will be watching, a little bit, what is a schematic design? What is the delivery of what we would be getting for that?
Sure, I could do it, or Kyle, do you
Yeah,
wanna?
I can take up. So it's,
I'm gonna pass this out while you go, but.
schematic design is kind of, it's putting the first initial steps of the building. So we did the programming, which kind of comes first. Then we took that and created something that looks like a building. So we have floor plans, we have elevations that shows this is the size of the building, what it could look like. At that point, that's kind of schematic. Here's a building, we know it fits, we know everything's in there. So then from schematic, from that point, so you can have schematic design plans, elevations, renderings, it's just kind of a picture of what it could be. From there, design development is making sure that all the pieces work and you can actually build it. We bring the engineers in, you know, so things get adjusted for structural, for mechanical spaces. And that is kind of the figuring out all the pieces to the building and making it so it's actually buildable. And then from that step after that is construction documents, which is really just documenting what we have. So theoretically, that stage is really just putting the information on the drawings. There's always minor changes, but so the first part is really the picture, the overall big picture. This is the size of the building, what it could look like. Design development is refining it, making sure all the components can fit in it, which usually adjusts some things, you know, room sizes, things like that. And then construction documents is putting a set of documents together so somebody could build it. So those are the stages.
If I could just add to some of that too, I think from a deliverable standpoint, when you get an SD package, that's gonna pretty much be floor plans, you know, first and second floor, if there is a second floor, a site plan, and you're gonna, for the estimate, you're gonna have a narrative. So you're gonna have like a pro forma for what all your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems will be. Those aren't designed out as part of schematic design. So when you go to the estimate, you say, here's the floor plans, here's the size of the building, here's what it's gonna look like. Kyle's team would say the exterior is gonna be built up of X, Y, and Z, and the mechanical systems are gonna be these types of systems, price it out. And then when design development comes, then they actually start designing those mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems into the drawings as well. So you start to get more pages in the drawing set, and it starts to you know, build up into a full set. You start to look at elevations of the building and wall sections of the building. And so that's where the set really starts to take shape. And then in construction documents, then they're fine tuning, you know, cuts through the building and details of how they're going to construct certain portions of the building and how things go together. So that's why it's broken up that way. It's a step basis. And so each part, each development type, you start to see more and more deliverables from the set standpoint goes, and your estimate also gets more in-depth in detail. That's why you see when you're first doing your schematic design estimate, you're usually carrying a 10% design contingency. And that design contingency is carried at that portion to cover what the estimator doesn't know, because they're just looking at a piece of paper that says, this is gonna be the HVAC system and I have 2 floor plans. Well, there's a whole lot more to that set, so we need to carry a contingency that carries what he doesn't know. Then when they move into DD, design development, and the estimator now has a much bigger package, but not the whole thing, we carry a 5% construction estimating contingency. And then when he's finally looking at that construction document set, there's no more estimating contingency at all, because all the information is there on the set for him to look at or her to look at. So that's more, I guess, in a nutshell, that's the kind of how that works for the people at home that might not know that process.
So just down to simple terms, we're currently in what we would consider phase 1.
Yes.
And then phase 2 would be what would be allocated from town meeting, should it be appropriated, to get us to that next, which
Correct.
would be the actual building piece of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so,
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
yes,
just to be clear though, excuse me, just to be clear, the 855,000, you were talking about the design development, the architect and the engineer and power, they're not done yet. There's still a lot
Right.
design to go. So the total design out to, you know, when the job is well underway or being built, it is more than that 855.
Correct, yeah.
You're only about maybe 40% along at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the
point.
biggest cost is really in the construction documents and where the nuts and bolts are coming together. You know, our cost is very little upfront during those phases. It's more, ours is more, management. And then our biggest cost, or Palmer's biggest cost, is when we have somebody on site, you know, 40 hours a week watching the construction. That's our kind of biggest, you know, nut in it all. So, but the architect's costs are all up front, really, more or less. They do have some CA, construction administration, that they do during the construction, but their heaviest pull is putting that drawing set together.
Okay. Well, appreciate that clarity. Those at home too, I'm sure will appreciate that too. Oh. If you wouldn't mind, Rich, I know,
You want to say, Rich?
right next to Kidney would be fine.
No, I know that LakeCAM's on the mic.
We usually don't get much participation, we don't get much audience, so I'll have to make sure that we have if you can all remind me to make sure that we have a spot for audience participation, that would be wonderful.
A feasibility study was approved in the spring of '21. And the study started and we finished that in September of '22. So now, you know, I don't know why it took so long to make a decision on the location, but it took a year to do that, which is too bad. But anyways, so that was the decision that's made, and there's additional costs that are gonna happen over there because of water line extension, you know, probably a traffic light, whatever that is. And we didn't need that over on Precinct Street. We already had the water line over there. And we also, we hadn't planned to put a traffic light there. We didn't think it was necessary. But anyways, based upon the numbers that we're talking about here, I think we just said $855,000 has been spent, or going to be spent, you know, so far. And we spent $70,000 on the feasibility study. So to put things in perspective here is that the police station building that we're in now, you know, costs just about $9 million, you know, to build, okay? That's not gonna happen with the fire station, no way. The prices have gone through the roof, as we all know. But the problem is that the police station is costing the taxpayers $440,000 a year for the debt exclusion that we passed for that particular project. So the situation now is, and I heard a number that the feasibility study said we're looking at roughly a 16,000 square foot building at the time. And I understand things change, okay? I understand there's 24,000 square feet right now. Now, that doesn't mean it's not gonna change, whatever. But if you look at the project like that, you know, plus the cost of not only construction, but engineering and everything else associated with that, you're talking about a $26 million project easily, you know. So that means, so everybody knows, that it's gonna be 3 times the cost of the police station, which is a significant increase to the taxpayer here in Lakeville. My point is, you need to tell the taxpayer, you know, what's going on here, because they may not wanna spend another $655,000 and understood that it's gonna cost them $500 on their tax bill, which is very likely that that's what it's going to be. So I think that when you go to town meeting and you ask for this money, you need to be prepared to say, based on this estimate at this point, I understand, you know, it can go up and down, but you know, in today's environment, the costs are probably going up 10 to 15% in the last year or so.
At least 5% a year.
Oh, yeah, at least. So that's an issue. But I think you need to tell them now, you know, what's going on, because you don't want to come in September and say, holy Christ, we got a $26 million project that's going to cost the average homeowner $500. So my next question would be, okay, September, you said September for town meeting, whatever that is, right?
We have June,
Pardon me?
June town meeting and then
And
fall.
November.
I'm saying in the
November.
fall.
November.
Why are you waiting so late?
No. The June town meeting will be 6:55.
Right, but we already spent we got
Correct,
220 already.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
plus 70 that we
Yes.
already spent for the feasibility
Yeah.
study.
Right.
Yes.
So September, you know, you gotta ask for an override.
Right. I think that the plan for you know, for this committee, you know, through the select board, is to at least during our June town meeting, is let them know exactly what it is that we're asking for. That this is just, you know, for the DD up through, you know, design development, but then there's gonna be additional costs. The town taxpayers may decide that they don't wanna go any further. But we are going to let them know, that was the plan, to let them know what the whole project was gonna look like.
Okay, so you mentioned September or whatever date. You said, somebody said September. I don't know who said it.
Right,
Yeah,
well, that's for the public, outreach. Right,
But when are you gonna ask for the override?
well, that's something that the select board's gonna have to decide.
The longer you wait, the more it's gonna cost.
Yep,
And so you be upfront with the taxpayer now and tell them what it's gonna cost, so they can make a good decision, because right now, people are totally confused out there, they have no idea what's going on.
right. Yes, Mr.
I would assume we would go to town meeting with the request for the development costs.
Yeah.
I'm sure Pomeroy will be at the town meeting.
Yeah.
To go through the project, to present the project. We have a cost tonight, of the cost of the project, an
Yeah.
estimated cost. Obviously, that will be presented. And then I would think you would probably go to the fall town meeting to ask for a debt exclusion, I would think.
And then if we have,
If
and
they
then the
vote
ballot,
yes,
right,
they vote yes at town meeting, the project moves forward to the spring town meeting, and to the fall town meeting, and if they say no, that's the end, I would think. That's
Right.
how it should go.
right.
That's
So
up to
we-
you, but I'm just telling you what's
Yeah.
out there in the public right now.
No, I think
Because,
we're
you
all
know,
pretty well aware that
You know,
there's,
that's what they're saying.
Right.
Whoa, that this project is, you know, gone from one thing to the other.
right,
Nothing to do with you guys, nothing to do with the chief, but it is what it is.
right.
But, you know, that's gonna be a tough sell, let me tell you.
Oh, I know, this,
I agree with you that we need to be transparent as we can be, but we can't throw a number out there without context. Like, we can't, you know, we can't leave out the story of why this number, you know, there's decisions that we've made in our history, in our past, that weren't strategically thought out. And there's a consequence to those decisions that we made, and that decision is that price tag right there. I mean, you know, you can't light up these people, they put themselves out there, they did the best they could at that time. But if they made a different decision, we'd be sitting in a new fire station right now for a fraction of this cost. And that's what should have happened at that time. We need to be transparent about the cost right now, so they make a good decision. But we also need to provide the information, the consequences of what happens if we don't do anything. Cost is never gonna go down. And the growth of the town is really, we're seeing some really short-term growth spike. And I don't know if we're not operating in a reasonable position right now as a fire department. We're asking too much of the service. We're overperforming for what we have for resources. And that's not sustainable for the people we have. It's not sustainable for the people we're hiring. And it's not fair to expect that of our responders. And eventually it's gonna fail. And we're gonna be in a crisis situation where we can't staff a fire department because we're operating in a labor market where there are fewer paramedics than paramedic positions in the Commonwealth. These guys can go wherever they want and they can get a pay raise. And a lot of these guys are working in this fire department on a promise and a hope that they love this community. They're committed to it. They love the people and they think that things are gonna get better. And if they lose hope, God forbid what's gonna happen next. And so, yes, we should tell them exactly what this is gonna cost, but we should tell them about what the potential consequences of not proceeding forward is.
And don't forget to tell them about the operating cost too.
right,
Yeah.
well, that's always a
Yeah.
thing, but, you know, in my mind, just to get
Putting up
back,
a building.
to
Yeah,
get
I
back
get
to, to get back to the schedule, to town meeting, part of my thought process was we have time to schedule additional meetings, but I know we have warrant review where we'll be inviting the public. But I was going to ask this committee to have not a public hearing, but more of a hearing where we can invite the public in before town meeting, like a public forum, where we can invite the public in, so we can talk a little bit more about how we got to where we are, where the next steps are gonna be, so that they are aware. So when they go to town meeting, we have done what we could do as a subcommittee, as a select board, as a community, to try to get that information out to them so that they can be smart shoppers, so to speak, you know, when they go to the town meeting.
And tying into what you just said, maybe September's too late to start our outreach. you know, maybe that's this town meeting that we have to
start it.
communicate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Rich makes a good point about, when you ask for the money, for the design development money is to give, there needs to be the backstory of what direction we're
Correct.
going in.
Right.
And really, Rich just said what
We've been saying.
We've been saying,
And-
yeah.
and so that really says one thing,
Yep.
and we always want to become better. It says that maybe we're not providing enough outreach right now. I've actually fielded the same questions that Rich just mentioned and
Yep.
explained that our intent is to go with a number. So I think that, you know, this conversation's a great one. Maybe we gotta bolster our, you know, the information sharing. Maybe we should, you know, get it out on the town's website and say, hey, look, we're looking to go to June with a design development number along with a schematic design estimate, right? So we're gonna have a schematic design estimate in May, right? We should be presenting that at town meeting. It shouldn't be a short conversation. It should be a long one explaining contingency and the fact that there's a higher contingency with schematic design estimates. And make sure the residents know that. And I think we probably all have to really have a, you know, a heart to heart with how we're gonna get this information out better. And, you know, I know Mike brought it up last time, and Mike, I think you do a great job advocating, and I have no issue at all, you know, you spearheading, you know, with Pomeroy, a campaign to start getting this information out there. This is our intent, is to provide town
Right.
meeting with a number.
Yeah, I know Molly in our office started building out a website, just for this project. So I have to see where she is with that. But that was gonna be our main strategies, and, I can have her bump that up very easily, and,
Okay.
we can start turning that
Yeah,
out.
it would be immediate need, because I think we're not getting our message out there, and we're not telling our story, and somebody's telling our story right now, and it's far from accurate. And I've picked up on it, you guys are getting the questions.
Yep.
There's a ton of misinformation out there, there's some bad players, and we need to get our story back and tell it ourselves.
And I think that would start bringing, you know, we have an opportunity to bring people together and they can hear it all at the same time. So you
Madam
just,
Chair, I think also just a little bit what Nate said, obviously Chief O'Brien has to spearhead the outreach, but not only Chief O'Brien, but also the firefighters, because they live it, they need to be out there as well. And I think the next meeting, we should concentrate on outreach.
Yep.
And how we're gonna move forward. Absolutely, the taxpayers are gonna need to know before Springtown meeting.
agreed.
It would be helpful for us if we could get what misinformation's out there. That'll help us to provide the actual factual information. We just did this in Stoughton, where it's the same scenario, somebody else was telling the story of what was actually going on. So if, you know, whoever it comes
We don't
from.
need to know who said or what you
No,
said,
Yeah,
what
we
it
don't
is.
know what's out there.
We'll put something
Yeah.
together
That would
and
be
and get
super
that
It
to
would
you.
help
So
us
we'll-
give the
yeah.
facts.
This would have to be a coordinated communication, because what their misinformation they're coming across is different from what I'm coming
Yeah.
across.
Sure.
And the primary lack of understanding is the importance of the location of the fire station. From a response time, from town growth, it's one of the fundamental, things that people seem to get wrong. Even people who support the new fire station don't seem to understand how important it is that we get it right, as far as where we build it. And like, if we spent, I don't care if we spent $5 million, I don't wanna see it wasted putting the station in the wrong place, because the day we move in, we'll need another station, and that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. So, that's my perception of misinformation. People don't understand the necessity of putting the station close to that intersection.
But while you're here, Rich, because you came up and said that we weren't getting that information out there. Where are you dialed in? Have you been watching our meetings, or where are you?
A little bit, but I went
Okay.
to the selectmen's meeting 2 weeks ago, and then it was mentioned, first time ever mentioned, that it was a 24,000 square foot building. It was not mentioned before.
That's because it had just come to this
I'm
committee.
just saying, you
Right.
know, so I said, wow, you know, that's a big difference between 16 and 24. So simple math is that you're talking about $900 to $1,000 a square foot to build a fire station, right? So you're talking.
Your full project cost.
No, full project
Right.
cost, so you're talking $25 million, $26 million, you know, for a project like that.
Right.
And what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
people are out there saying, wait a minute, when they found out about that at the meeting, saying, oh my God, you know, that's a lot bigger than we originally talked about and what we were gonna do. The other thing is that the selectmen ought to be up front and also talk about the Old Colony project was gonna come right at the same time. And that's a new school, that's probably gonna be a $250 million project, you know, which is huge. So that's another big cost, and they ought to be
Yeah, there's a lot
aware
of
of what's
movement
going
happening
on.
in the town, right?
Pardon me?
I said there's a lot of movement happening in the town,
Well,
right?
they're a lot farther ahead than the fire station project is. They're really, I don't know, they have to have it submitted by to October 1st or some crazy thing, I don't remember.
And they're getting reimbursement on the dollar.
Correct.
Yeah, we're getting, they're getting 50%, right.
I-
So a $250 million project is what, $125 million, we got 30% of the students there. That's $36 million project for the town of Lakeville. It's a lot of money, you know, anyways. Oh, my name's Rich LaCamera, so you know for the record, I didn't say that up front. 32 Potter House Road.
All right, very good.
One
Thanks,
of,
Rich.
one of the benchmarks that, you know, early, like during the feasibility study, some of the early conversations was the people from Lakeville love Mattapoisett. They love the Mattapoisett station. That was one of the early benchmarks. And they're sitting at about just under 17,000 square feet. That building, we went through, we looked at it, and mission, I keep on talking about mission. Mattapoisett doesn't run EMS. They don't have brush and they don't have a tanker. So like most of this building is apparatus storage. So, you know, you get those square footage piled up and it's piling up because of our mission and the diversity of our mission here. Like Lakeville's it's like 3 different fire departments rolled into one just because of the features found in the town where, you know, we've got densely populated areas, we've got rural, we've got hydrant district, we have non-hydrant district, we have wooded property, so it's like we're trying to fix so many problems under one roof, and you end up with an exact, you know, higher levels of square footage.
Yeah, it's part of the issue too, I think you're fighting is maybe bias from that feasibility study. That feasibility study wasn't completed by a firm that builds fire stations, or, you know, so right away when we saw that, we noticed some of those prices being off, and the diagrams that they had of a station, you know, we could see things that we knew weren't correct, that would have to be. I think there was excellent information there, don't take it the wrong way whatsoever. And the fact, I think it was completed in 21, so, you know, you're already, after escalation, behind the 8 ball in years, you know, from what those prices were. But I think we can easily, you know, put together information and give the facts of why it costs the way it is now. And,
And that's the important thing is to provide context. You don't provide a statistic or a figure without information. But being transparent, that's along those lines.
Madam Chair, so 2 weeks ago, we actually talked about this, was that before we ask for any more money, we have to put together a number.
Yep.
I mean, when we originally asked for the original number for feasibility, someone went on for a solid 10 minutes at the town meeting asking, well, what are we looking at if we spend this money? So we already knew this was going to be an issue, and it's great that Rich brought it up because we do know the public needs to be on our side.
Right.
If you need to know what the public's saying, Lakeville helping Lakeville, it's an interesting place to read. They have some stories out there. Most of them are inaccurate, but they are interesting to read. But also, we have to explain that every year you kick this is going to happen one way or another. But every year you kick this can down the road, you're adding more to that number by a minimum of 5%. Had this been done, what was this building, 7, 8 years ago? We could have done the whole project for
4 years ago.
when
4 years
did
ago,
they
yeah.
start building this? Right. This was I've been living here.
About the same time they hired me, about 2018.
So in 2018, had they done this whole thing, they could have done the whole project in one shot for 14 million. So shame on bad decisions. This is the consequences to your actions. If you want to keep kicking the can down the road, then you can go from 24 million, which we don't know the number yet, to 30 million. So, and you also have to build for the future. You can't just build the fire department for what he needs right now, because in 2 years, there's going to be more apparatus needed. Lakeville's going to grow. What if we somehow end up with 4-story buildings in town? God forbid, but what if it ever happens? He needs to access those. They need equipment to do that. So we need to build for the future. And that's the stuff we have to convince the people in town that they need to be behind the fire department, because not for nothing, they need the fire department a lot in this town. They're a busy firehouse. And we ask a lot of them and give them very little in return, so. I'm the last person who wants to spend a dime, trust me. But this is a project that needs to be done without a doubt.
Thanks, sorry, Matt, you
Yeah,
had something?
so we keep talking about wanting to deliver a budgeted number to the town when we ask for their additional money. And I'm looking at the schedule and I'm seeing that we're potentially getting our estimate the Friday before town meeting, which gives us no time to meet
Agreed.
and react to it and come up with a game plan or anything.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big concern to me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at if that can be moved up at all.
I think it can be moved up. My only concern right now would be we needed to solve the site
Okay.
questions. And ideally, we'd like to go into that with some geotechnical information so that we can give an idea of what we're actually building on. We don't need it, so it can be moved, that could be pushed up. But if we're talking, if we're flagging next week and we can resolve the stream question within, a week or two, then it'd be better to get some geotechnical information before we go into that estimate.
It's all strategy, right? This is something we talked about before, is whether you go in and ask for the whole nut, or,
Right.
tell them what that is, or go in and ask for just the design
Right,
money. So-
right, and even if we're asking for just design money and everyone wants to know what the estimate is, if we don't get the estimate till the Friday before, we don't have a chance to come up with a game plan of how
No, you're
to,
right.
No.
how to feed the information to
Yeah.
everybody or how to react to it or.
Right,
I agree. I don't think the plan was to discuss a full project budget at that time, until very recently.
Okay.
So we have to absolutely look at that and how we can bump that up. And I think we would be ready to discuss a budget, but it would have to be caveated with, we don't have all the this is not fully baked yet. We're
Right.
looking in this range sort of thing, to give them an idea of this is where it's gonna fall. We don't know if it's gonna be the low end or the high end. Like,
Taylor, does it make sense to get Secoshio, the geotech from this building? I mean, we did borings right along the edge of,
yeah, I think
the
we
entrance,
actually did
yeah.
send it over already.
Okay.
Yeah, we may have that. I mean,
good, yeah.
In consistency wise for the materials here, they're
was very
pretty,
good.
very, very consistent. So maybe that's a starting point, and if you saw any anomaly in those borings.
so, I think that's a decision that can be made, because we can use that information as a basis.
Yeah.
It's just, if we're talking a range, then I think the estimate could start sooner. If we're looking for them to give us kind of, a 10-15% range where we're falling in between these two numbers, then we don't need as close of information. If we're gonna try to go, this is the goal right now, then the more information we can get before we do that.
Yeah, I think it'll be a healthy thing to have a range, at town meeting and say, here's the number, here's the additional money that the design team needs for design. What you're gonna get with this is a building in the range of this square footage. What that project cost is gonna be somewhere in this range. And I'm not talking a large range. We'll try to dial in as best we can. But I think absolutely it's a great idea. It keeps everybody, apprised of where that project is gonna fall. You'll see what I passed out, kind of that's where it's falling with the numbers that, we have right now. But again, that's just running a quick and down and dirty square footage cost before all your markups and contingencies. And so we're right in that, $20 million mark, I'd say, for lack of a better, estimate at this point. But yeah, getting dialed in numbers is very helpful with an estimate. But I think let us talk more and kind of strategize on that. I appreciate that 100%. I agree. I think we need to have some sort of, here's what you're getting for that design money. Here's, what the outlook would be if you approve this money. Where is it going?
So the other thing is, we talk about geotech, and we know what it is over here. Do you just space that out more? So we're still in the general vicinity. Is it possible to, check the consistency along the furthest most edge of work and see if they're consistent with
So,
what we have over
yeah,
here.
I think Jim will have a similar idea. If we get similar findings, then great.
We-
But if we go to 3 different spots spread out and we get 3 different results, now we're gonna have to come back and do it again once we know where the building is.
Yeah, if we have the geo for this building, and then we also do test pits for stormwater and the septic,
Yeah.
and those we can do a lot quicker. If we do the test pits and we see, you know, the top 8 to 10 feet of soil and it's consistent, we have a good idea that it would match over here, you know, and
I mean, I would feel
I
very
think that would-
comfortable if we did that.
yeah, the
because-
borings, we want to get them in the building footprint, so we do want another building footprint, but we don't need them right away, I don't think, you know. We could do the test pits, and I think that would tell us. You know, generally what we find, if there's rock, that can add a cost. If there's fill on the site, that can add a cost, or organics, you know. But if you dig down and it's gravel or sand or, you know, something suitable material, then there's really no additional cost implications.
I mean, I would plan on doing the test pits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask if we can get some help from DPW to get out there with a backhoe. Then you're saving money, you don't have to spend any money to hire a contractor out there. It's usually what the towns do, is get a backhoe for a day, dig some test pits, and the professionals go out and witness them.
Yeah, we'll mark them on the plan where we want to do the test pits, and then we usually get some help from DPW to do
I'll
the
check with
excavating.
Frank. When would that be?
I mean, we want to nail down, we try to do them in the area of the septic system and then also in the area where we're going to do any kind of stormwater infiltration. So we'd want to nail that down a little bit, but we could probably get the next couple of weeks, get,
So early May?
yeah, have a
Early.
plan together.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back to you a little more
Yeah.
firm,
I'll just see what he has to say.
yeah, firm date, but.
You know, as we get closer, and, just because I'd like to make sure that I let the Parks Commission know, you know, what our plans are and when, you know, somebody will be on site, so. Just keeping them in the loop.
If anything, maybe we could go out there and maybe do some just test bits in the general area to see what the soil makeup is, and then come back and do, you know, septic and,
Yeah.
and perk testing, that sort of thing too,
Yep.
if needed, so.
Well,
We'll get back to the town.
Yeah, I don't know, we'll have to look kind of closer at access, but, you know, there's a spot kind of into the site that is out of all the buffers, that's probably the location for those things. It's just whether it's easy access or if there's, you know, hard to get to.
I think we have pretty easy access, actually. Where we held the Lakeville Haunted House is 5,000 or 6,000 square foot building. We demoed that a few years back. That's completely clear of anything. I mean, you could be on the outskirts of where the foundation was. There's also that walking trail that you could easily bring a machine down without being disruptive. It's relatively dry out there, which kind of tells me it's pretty good soils.
Yeah.
And then there's a pine grove right on the top, and the trees are pretty widely spaced, so I think we could be relatively not disruptive in there.
Yeah, yeah, we can lay out a test pit plan and then we'll call it dig safe and we'll give them 3 days.
Great. Taylor, you wanna go over what you just handed out to us too?
Yeah, sure. I take this please for what it is. I almost wrote draft across the top 50 times.
Which it would have been fine too.
But I did, you know, since we were talking budget and I, you know, gave you an estimate on what your design development numbers were, I wanted to show you what that kind of correlated back to and where those numbers came from. And, you know, kind of showed you what this building, what we're looking at in terms of a development budget at this time. So up top, this is very, call it a bird's eye view of this. Normally what you get in an estimate is you're gonna get the hard costs and you're gonna get all the markups for the GC, overhead and profit, and, you know, contingencies, all that fun stuff. We've basically rolled that all up, used $625 a square foot before any of your soft costs. That's a pretty safe number for this type of construction. We confirmed that with Secoshio's office as well. So if we were to have a building of about 24,000 square feet, you know, the hard costs of construction for that would be, you know, $15,500,000. Now, we would carry a 10% contingency on a project of this size. That's another $1.5 million. That is for any unforeseen conditions during construction. We can talk about how we may want to loosen that up to 7.5% or 5% as we get a little bit further down the line, know the site better. But that's to cover if, God forbid, you hit some ledge or, something, big happens to the project. You have that kitty to cover it. We always recommend 10% at this time. Then as I work my way through the owner's development costs, line 6 is what's already been funded to take you through schematic design. Line 7 is the rest of the architect's contract to take them through project completion. Typically it runs in the 9, 10, 11% of your overall construction cost. So it would be 9% of line 5. Again, these are not, we haven't gone through negotiation with the architect or us for these. I'm just using percentages just so you get a feel of where these numbers would fall. So if we use 9%, you'll see 1.5 is where that architect number falls through to take you through the entire set of construction. It's typical range where that number falls. Line 8 is for our portion through schematic design that's already been funded. Line 9 is through our portion through DD through closeout of the project. And about 7% of our total fee is what we would be using for DD. So that's the fee that you see in the DD side of things. The biggest portion, like I said, I think it's about roughly $400,000 is having somebody on site 5 days a week or whenever construction is happening, 40 hours a week. So that's our biggest portion of that number. Line 10, we're carrying a commissioning agent. This is completely up to the town if they want to perform this service on the building. To explain commissioning very quickly, this is a third party that mostly with your HVAC system performs checks and balances on that system when it's going in, does testing of that system when it's going in. HVAC systems, as we know, are always the most problem-wrought systems that are in these buildings, no matter how well they're put in. So a commissioner goes through and runs tests and balances the system and makes sure it's 100% the way that it should be installed and 100% performing as the spec calls it to perform. They do above and beyond testing. Again, it's something that not every community decides to do. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's tough to say. I think on larger buildings, much more intricate buildings, it's better money spent. On buildings of this size, I don't see too much of a value added most of the time. So we'll have to talk about that. Right now I am just carrying it because it is a typical cost to carry. Next, 11 was a third-party estimate. The going rate for estimates is anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. So you'll see that cost there. 12 was the additional land survey and topographical survey. 13, 14, and 15 are all included currently in the AE fee for their services through SD. 16 was our contract with LEC for the licensed site professional working with Natural Heritage. 17 is the fire station alerting system. So this is the system that when a call comes in, the lights come on, the readout of where they're going comes up on a screen. It wakes up everybody softly and not abruptly. There's all different components that come into this system. There's ones with tons of bells and whistles. This is more kind of in talking with the chief, more of a nuts and bolts type system that there's different screens in the corridor that tells you exactly what type of call it is, where the call is. There's traffic lights that tell you when the truck can leave the bay, so they're not hitting any of the garage doors that are coming up out of the way. So there's an integrated system. We can talk and go more in depth in that system as we get closer. 18 is firematic equipment. This is mainly the equipment that is in the decon area. So this is majorly your extractor washer and your drying cabinets for the gear. So those are very expensive pieces of equipment. They're typically bought outside of the contract and installed by the contractor. You see a savings in money for that because we can buy them off of a state contract. 19 is miscellaneous fire department operational equipment. This could be hose storage, it could be tools, it could be stuff for the mechanic. We don't know what those are gonna be yet, so it's right now just a placeholder. Number could go down or be eliminated as we get more into the design with the chief in the department. That number fluctuates or changes, so. Vehicle exhaust recovery system, that we're not carrying anything for that. That is in the base bid estimate. So that's the Plime Event system, or the system you see with the hoses that hook up to the exhaust system. When they're pulling out, they can turn the trucks on before they leave the bays. It sucks all the exhaust out of the building, and they can go without leaving any CO2 emissions in the building. So it's part of the design of the project. Sometimes it is cut out separately, but in this case, we're looking at it as part of the design. 21 is furniture and furnishings. This is basically your furniture for the station, of a station of this size. This is relatively where we would see your number come in for a furniture budget. We just did Stoughton. Stoughton was right around 120. It's a little bit smaller station, so it's a pretty good number there. 23 is money that we would carry for a phone system. If the town has a town-wide phone system that didn't have to buy the head-end equipment for it, and you're looking at a major savings there, and you're really just buying phones, and everything's VoIP back to the head-end equipment that is probably at the town hall, or actually I think it's here, the phone system, so you probably wouldn't need that much, but again, just a typical number. Communication equipment and radios, this is here in case you'd have to buy any new radios for the fire department. Communications tower, not carrying one right now, but if we had to carry one, we'd have to add that price in. So we're going to need to do probably a propagation study to understand if a tower would be needed for communications. I don't think based on the communications that we get here, I think everything was fine. So moving over across the street, I don't think will be an issue either, but we'll do a test. Owner move costs, carry a small amount there. You're not really moving anything over. Builder's risk, this is an amount that you need to carry that covers the building during construction. If they're in the middle of construction, it catches on fire and burns down, the builder's risk covers that project for you. If it wasn't there, then it wouldn't be covered. 30 is utility company back charges.
Excuse me, sorry. Gotta notice, sorry.
30 covers you for, for your water service, electrical service, anything that's being brought to the building. If there's any charges with that, Comcast, Verizon, that carries those costs. Legal fees, in case town council had to look over any contracts, do any due diligence, there's a small amount carried there. Bidding expenses, everything's mainly done online now through like Project Dog or Bid Docs. It's a minimal fee for that. It's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, so just carrying 5 there. And then material testing, we have seen the cost for this go up over the past 2 years. This is testing from concrete, compaction, steel, framing, anything that needs to be tested per the specifications that is tested by a third party. The contractor is not to carry that for obvious reasons. So we do then, line 34, have a total development cost, and then we added right now a 5% contingency on top of that, just because we haven't flushed out any of these costs. As we get further into DD, we actually start contacting furniture companies and getting furniture prices and start drilling these numbers down further and further and further to make it a smaller number. We're looking at making savings here. So again, these are safety nets at this point, is like line 35. Then we have a subtotal there, and then 5% escalation to get us to a 2025 construction start. And then you'll see that total project costs at the very end there, which is your all-in number at this point. Sorry, there was a lot.
No, I think
There's a lot that goes into these.
No, we needed to go through this. This is very helpful. What were you gonna say, Chief?
Any questions?
I was thinking that, it's just a fraction of this bottom line, but some of the things that the town's been engaging in on the side, the fire department, is our grant writing, trying to defray some of the soft costs. The firematic equipment, we're probably gonna wipe that out. that cost out with our grant writing and with also the ARPA funding. So, you know, it's just an example of us trying to lower the cost for the community as much as we can.
I have a question about the commissioning agent.
Yes.
Is that strictly, is all they do is HVAC?
No, you can have them do a full building systems. Yeah.
It's funny, is I just had a conversation with the fire chief and deputy chief that has a building that's 5 years old. And when he heard I was in this town, he mentioned to me about, and I said, I'm actually on the committee, he said his biggest regret was the HVAC system.
Yeah.
He says, they're always freezing, they're always sweating, that it's the worst system they ever had.
Yeah.
So-
Unfortunately, it's the biggest. Yeah, we see it in. It seems like every project. It's always.
Well, because I always said, everyone always says to me, storage, and more storage. This is the first time I've ever had it. It was both of them, chief and the deputy chief, said to me, make sure your HVAC's right, because ours is the worst it's ever been.
Yeah. The systems have come a long way, I think, with VRF systems, variable refrigerant flow. What's proposed here is, or might be the latest design, we're not even there yet, actually. We'll go through that process and the town will actually pick what type of system they want, but they are getting better. The issue is they're getting more complicated, and with all the computer and you know, brains that go into these things now, they've made them so complicated that it's so hard to get them right. It's so hard to dial them in. Whereas the old systems, where it's just easy air in, air out, people were much more comfortable because it was predictable. And now with these newer systems, you can be heating in one room and cooling in another, literally. And this building does that actually. So it's tough to keep those creature comforts for everybody when different parts of the building are all different.
Is it because of, are the systems more complicated because of the green movements?
The energy code has a lot
codes,
to it.
all that stuff, so that's affecting the systems now.
So they're to make them more efficient, you know, they're run by computers, so then all of a sudden you can do whatever you want to the system. So the system comes where you have 100% control over it. The problem is that goes way beyond, you know, I want it 2 degrees warmer. You know, that becomes more complicated.
The thunderstorm between rooms.
Yeah, and the fact that you can heat and cool at the same time with the system.
I
So
think
there's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of, we work hard on a lot of these because that's the same complaint we get a lot of times. We've put plenty in and then they come back and say, we don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
You know, they've trained us 4 times on it and we still don't know how to use it, you know? Or somebody went in and touched something and now the whole thing doesn't work anymore because they were just trying to raise the temperature. So
that's the biggest thing. They work well when nobody screws with them and starts fiddling with them, and then it throws them all off. And if somebody doesn't have the right training, so what we're starting to look at is more simplified systems that get you what you want. Where, you know, people that tend to screw with things when they have some downtime, firefighters, you know,
Going on my head right now.
they're easily, you know, they're not throwing off the whole building because it does happen, and then they blame it on the system, but it's really because somebody went into some program and they screwed it up, and
Right.
They're very, very complex nowadays.
So the days of all thermostats and everything.
Yeah, that Honeywell that you're.
Just working, zones don't work, whatever.
You can do it, but you know, the energy cost they're much higher.
If
for
you
those systems.
if you could keep the word simple in your head, that would make me very happy. And I understand we have to maintain positive pressure to keep contaminants out of the living space and like that. But whenever we can make if we can make anything simple in the systems of this building, I'd be very happy.
yeah, we spend a lot of time at work. There'll be a lot of discussion about the controls and who has controls and, you know, how do you provide the ability for different temperatures in different rooms without giving people access to everything.
Wear a sweater or a t-shirt, you know, to just adjust.
I say you give Nate control and maybe have him come down.
He's got
That's what
control.
I'm talking about.
I'll get a text message. I think somebody just left the door open.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So I just want to caveat the budget with, you know, please don't run around town and say this is the cost. And honestly, this is like my best, you know, crystal ball right now. It could go up, it could go down, it could stay the same, but We just don't have enough information right now. And, I'm sure, I know everybody knows that, but I just, want to say that this is best, crystal ball, looking at the future. If everything were to stay the same today, I feel good with this number, but things are going to change, so.
And the square foot number we're using is a decent number now. It's not overly conservative,
Yeah.
and it's really hard now to pinpoint it, and it really depends on when you bid and the market around. That number can fluctuate, from one month to another, it can fluctuate a lot.
Yeah, we are seeing great signs.
I was just
sure,
gonna talk about that. Yeah, I'm working on Swansea Public Library. Our DD estimate came in at about 14.7. We got bids back 3 weeks ago, and our base bid came back at 12.5. So we're more than $2 million under budget right now, which is great. So the market is starting to level off. I think, again, Kyle Taylor, if I'm speaking out of turn, but we are starting to see it level off. Now, a library is very different than a fire station. Fire station's a lot more complex, there's a lot more equipment to it, there's a lot more to it. But that's positive that we're starting to see the market sort of level
We're
off.
starting to see more competition too from contractors. There was
Yes.
there was a bidding period, definitely at the end of COVID, coming out of COVID too, where you'd bid something and get no bids, you'd get one bid. But we're starting to see competition start to come back too, which is definitely helpful.
My first thought, this is very, very helpful. And I know we can put draft across the top, but I guess how I'm envisioning this next is putting together some kind of a very simple narrative that would go in front of this. And this is the information that we would get out to people as a start. I mean, I'd just like to see how the committee feels, but I mean, this is, obviously could be moving, like you said, but it's a good snapshot.
It is. I think it might be too early. What I really want to do is get back a schematic design construction estimate before, not to say that we can't, go public with something. It just, that is the biggest unknown in this whole budget. These other numbers I could probably sleep well with because I've worked with them. I've known them for years now. It's that construction number that is really up in the air.
That's the biggest number.
Yeah, and that's the biggest number.
Right.
So,
Yeah, great point.
All right, yeah, well, when we come back to our next meeting, I think we'll talk about our PR piece.
What we can do too is, we have projects that are in construction, bidding, just finishing. We have data on what the square footage costs were per those. We have tons of fire station data. So we can show very simply this is what these projects are costing. Different architects, different GCs, different bids. This is right in line with what the industry is doing right now.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Do you have what you need for the warrant, though?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion, if that's what we're gonna do next, on this article, town meeting article.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
So I make a motion that the fire station building committee submit a town meeting article for design development cost and related expenses in the amount of $655,000.
Second that.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? And for the public, I'm gonna, ask that we do roll call vote, in name and your support. We can start with you, Mike.
Mike McCullough, aye.
Peter Conroy, aye.
Michael Bryan, aye.
And Carboni, aye.
Matt Diamond, aye.
Nate Dowling, aye.
Bob Nunes, aye.
Larry Costan, aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Great, so 6A. And who seconded the motion?
Nate.
All right. Now it looks like we're getting into, budget update, which is kind of what we just went through, but, as far as the invoices in regards to so there were a couple of invoices that,
I didn't bring coffee. You
I have those right here.
have it?
Yeah. Right here.
No, no ticky, no shirty. Forget it.
We sent them over. I just didn't bring them.
Rich, did you see it?
Good.
You want me to? Oh, I know. It's fine.
There.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, the first invoice is for Kosha and Associates. This is for, the month of March, for early schematic design, in the amount of $14,850. Looks like this gets them to 35% completion of phase one.
I make a motion, to approve Secoshio and Associates Architects invoice number 23083-4 dated 4/8/24 in the amount of $14,850.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mike McCullough, aye.
Conroy, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Darling, aye.
Nunes, aye.
Cost and I.
All right, motion carries.
And the second invoice was for us for Pomeroy Associates, in the amount of $7,730 for the month of March.
We make a motion to approve Pomeroy Associate LLC invoice number LFSP-005 dated 4/2/2024 in the amount of $7,730.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
McCullough, aye.
Conroy, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Darling, aye.
Nunes, aye.
Cost and I.
All right, motion carries. All right, excellent. And then any old business, coming in front of us? Oh,
I just wanted to ask if, Mike and Pete and Bob could hang around, so we'll
Yep.
sign them tonight before you leave.
I read my letters.
yeah.
Very efficient.
Any old business? New business? Oh, I have a list. Just kidding. All right,
Oh, I thought you were serious.
so our next scheduled meeting, would be, I had tentatively Wednesday, the, 24th. Here, 6:30. 6:30 still works for everybody,
Yeah. I get to eat before I come.
which is good, right?
So when we just sent out, they just sent out all the meetings in advance, right? It was
Yes.
on hand?
So where did we say the 2nd and 4th, right? Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have this room booked for the second and fourth Wednesday for, it's like the next 180 days or something. I think I only sent out the meeting notifications for like the next 5 or 6 meetings. We can go from there.
So I'll work with, with Christina and, Taylor to put together the next agenda. But on that agenda, I wanna, for us to schedule a date where we can have, because May's next month, it's right around, I wanna pick a date where we can actually have a public forum. So we can start to, announce that we'll be doing it. I wanna make sure we have a room. I know the library does, accommodate 150 people. So that might be the best place for it, but, I'll work with whoever on that, just as an expectation for the next meeting.
Yeah, we need to be doing that. And at that meeting too, we'll have, information on the site, final information on that. And we'll have an update on where the schematic design will be. We'll talk about pushing that up or, being able to have something for town meeting, for discussion purposes.
I also wanted to thank Christina. She was able to move the fire station building committee to the front page of our town website. So the link is there. So one click. It gives us one click, because I said, we gotta do it within 2 clicks, so it worked. Thank you very much.
It's on the very top banner, appears on the main page of the website.
Madam Chair, question, are we gonna try to put together some type of, I know we talked about marketing and putting out, but some type of outreach to the community, I don't know, a firefighters day or something where we can have a rendering and have people come by and talk to the firefighters, talk to the chief, talk to members of the committee, whatever, just to try to get some good vibes out there and some good information. More importantly, good information.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad of it,
Right.
so I want good.
So maybe that's the public forum, maybe we can incorporate a little bit of that.
Mhm.
So maybe it'll get bigger than what I envisioned, but yeah.
I'm happy to meet with whoever wants to talk to me at any time.
Yeah,
Well, not anytime.
versus the 6:30 meeting at the library, because we get 100 people in there. a Saturday afternoon at the firehouse, come down and meet your fire department.
Yeah,
and,
that could work too.
Have a hamburger and see what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that exact thing in Stoughton.
Okay.
We did like a fire station, like, day open house.
Yeah, an open house,
And a
that's
lot,
the word I was
yeah, and a
looking for.
lot of people did come down. It was actually, happened to be a lot of people that were against the project, and it gave us a lot of time to discuss it with them and right some wrongs and give some good information, so it turned some people.
Going into fall town meeting, when, we had an open house, was very successful, we focused on tours. Some very vocal opponents to the fire station were flipped, after seeing the building, so it works, and
Does.
we're prepared to do it again.
Yeah, I think an open house, that was the word I was looking for, is the way to go.
Open house, yeah, so,
Make it an event.
yeah, look at your dates. and-
You went to that event?
I was there.
Yeah.
I was, yeah.
First week in October.
Yeah, it might be a little late though for what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
We might
So
have
with
to-
something in May, we're gonna do something in May.
Late, early June, whatever.
Well, 'cause June 10th
Unfortunately,
is the
our
town meeting.
75th anniversary, event is gonna be after town meeting, so it would have been nice to, if we timed it out a little bit earlier.
Well, it's not like we can't do more.
Yeah, that's true.
This one just gets us to town meeting, we still got another one we're gonna sell the override for, so you'll be okay. We'll have plenty of time to talk to people.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, our first step is we need to have, more than just,
Yep.
I agree, we have to have a forum, but I think the open house is the way to go. It's not an
Sure.
official meeting, it's not a quorum issue, it's an open house. Let
It's,
people come ask questions.
passive outreach does not work in this community. We saw that with some of the projects that have gone awry.
Mhm.
And it's just something that we have to really put it in their face for them to see it and to pay attention to it.
Sounds great. I'm sure we'll have more of an update, at our next meeting, kind of where you're at on that, so. Yes, Christina.
Sorry, I just have one more request. If the map that was distributed tonight and then the documents that Pomeroy distributed, if you guys could send them to me electronically, just because we do have one member missing,
Yeah.
and it would be helpful just to have like an administrative copy in the office.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. Make sure you get all that.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more follow-up question? If we're gonna do
Please.
some type of open house, would we be able to have some type of visual representation, or is it still too early?
No, we could have
Okay,
visuals.
Very important.
it is.
We do rendering a model with a little.
I don't know about the model, but
Come on.
I'll eat all the.
the renderings, yes, the renderings are quick, the models take a little more time.
Could you make me taller than everybody else?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're 3D printers, we're done in minutes now,
Yeah,
right?
I don't wanna talk for you guys, but maybe, what we did I'm just thinking Stoughton, because it was the most recent one that we did an open house, but, we set up a big smart screen in the bay, and they had a flyover. And I know it's really early, but maybe you can, put something there that, some
Yeah.
visual, and
Mask.
you put it on just a running loop of just that flyover of what it would look like, and it grabs people with more attention than just a picture on the board.
We have that technology. We have a smart board, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, we do. Excellent. All right,
Smartly.
you got it, 8:04.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right.